morning, everybody. It is April 27th, 2020, and that falls on a Monday. It is just after 11 o'clock, and I'm here in my warehouse, as you can tell. I think you can tell. And I had a few merchant fulfilled sales over the weekend. Actually, technically, not one of them was on the weekend. It's just that I'm shipping them today. I had one late Friday afternoon, and then I had one early this morning, or at some point early today. Here's two merchant fulfilled orders. One from Friday, late Friday. Today is Monday. So one from late Friday the 24th, and then one from this morning. So this one was $5.39, and this one was $12.88. So that's over $18, like $18.50 roughly. So not too bad. It helps. So I'll ship these out. These are both audiobooks, as you can tell. Always look up audiobooks. Always, because you never know. This one I listed February of 2019, so it took over a year to sell. It was ranked 1,268,000 when I listed it, and now it is 654,000 rank. And the 1.2 million rank is actually not bad for an audiobook, but it did take, a year and 2 months, so 14 months to sell. Sometimes you gotta wait. This one also I listed in February of last year, and the initial rank was 768,000. And actually right now, the rank has not gone down since I sold it only a couple hours ago. Sometimes that happens. Actually, both of these were from Gaylords. I pulled them out of Gaylords, at a mixed media Gaylords. And this spreadsheet that I keep here are all from that Gaylord that I listed on Merchant Fulfilled. And so all the ones that do not have highlights are the ones that have not sold yet. And the ones that are highlighted have sold. And this is all from all the way to the top here, down here is from, so all the way from the top, this one here, all the way from the top down here is from one Gaylord from February of 2019. So more than half have sold, much more than half. I like to keep this little spreadsheet just to kind of have an idea of what my sell-through rate is and how long things take to sell. And they take a lot longer for Merchant Fulfilled, I found. I just sold another one on Merchant Fulfilled. This is Javier Solis. This one has not been up very long. This is awesome. So about 10 minutes ago I sold it while I was packing up those other two that I just talked about. This one sold for $12.99. And this one, interestingly, has two other options, two other offers, and they're both new. Actually, three. They're all new, $30 and over, and mine sold for $12.99. Sometimes you have to do that. You have one that's in good or very good condition, and these prices are a bit high. Just to get the sale, you price it what's more of a realistic price based on what it's sold for in the past. And these here, this whole list, from the top here down, I listed these on the end of November of last year, November 2019. So far I've sold 1, 2, 3, 4. So as you can see, they do start selling, but it does take some time. So you have to be patient with Merchant Fulfilled. I found that it's not, overall, it's more of a long game and quantity. So if you're going to go Merchant Fulfilled, list a lot of books or a lot of items, and be prepared for a lot of competition and having to potentially wait. Even if you do have a repricer, it still can take some time to sell. But it's definitely worth it if you have the space to store stuff.
CDs are great because they're small, so you don't need much space to store them. So you can store several hundred. You can store 500 CDs without much space just using a bookshelf. So if you can't do CDs, of course you can do books, and you can still store a good amount. But anyway, so just be patient and they come along.
And then I had one a little bit later than that today as well. So technically I had no merchant fulfilled sales over the weekend, but it feels like I did because I'm shipping them today. So the question of the day is, should you sell merchant fulfilled or just stick to doing FBA if you're only doing Amazon?
There's just so many options.
Currently, right now, during this coronavirus, I highly recommend doing merchant fulfilled because Amazon stopped inbound shipments for most media items and now has slowly started to let books and other media be sent in. I know because I sent in a shipment, well, it's been like over a week ago or so, 10 days, something like that. I was able to list and ship in the majority of the books, only a couple they didn't take in. CDs were a different story. They weren't taking all of the CDs, so I had to list some merchant fulfilled or put some on eBay. But sticking to the point here that they are slowly letting more items be sent in, and actually I don't know, since I did that shipment, if now they're letting even more items in. Let me know in the comments below if that is your experience in the last week. Regardless, I recommend, highly recommend, if you cannot send in your items that are for merch or that are for FBA, I highly recommend putting those up on Amazon as merchant fulfilled. Now, whether it's during the coronavirus, before the coronavirus, after all of this is over, or I should say, whatever the new normal looks like going forward, whatever that looks like in regards to businesses opening back up. Because as of right now, I assume a lot of you, if you're a reseller watching this video, I assume you're having a hard time finding new items to resell due to the fact that thrift stores are closed, library book sales are not happening, estate sales and garage sales are by and large not happening. So the only real place you can find stuff is either online or, and what I mean is, off of eBay to flip on Amazon, or locally. That's the big one, is local business. So finding people that are giving away stuff or looking to get rid of stuff for cheap and picking those up and then reselling those on Amazon. But anyway, whether you have absolutely no items to list right now or you have a lot to list, I recommend doing merchant fulfilled. It's generally a good idea to diversify, and you might say, now some of you FBA fanatics, like I was in the beginning, will say, no, I don't even want to touch or deal with shipping other than shipping items into FBA or into Amazon for FBA. And I understand that, and that's fine. But this is an example, a very unique and horrible example, but an example where doing merchant fulfilled makes a lot of sense, similar to doing eBay, but that's not what this is about, or that's not what this video is about. So I recommend eBay as well. But in order to diversify within Amazon, you can either get into different product types. So if you're starting with books, you can get into other types of media, or completely outside of media, but still selling on Amazon. Or you can diversify into merchant fulfilled. So what's happening too, what I'm noticing with a lot of merchant fulfilled prices, where before they used to be much lower than your typical FBA price, and now a lot of the merchant fulfilled prices have come up to this, basically a lot of times the same exact price as the FBA prices, or just barely below them, because of the lack of FBA shipments going in. So I'm assuming that will slowly start to change over time. It could be in the next weeks, months, I don't know, but probably sooner than later that's going to start to change. But regardless, even before that happened, it was still a great idea to do merchant fulfilled. So diversification purposes is a big reason. So that some items might not make sense FBA, but they will make more sense merchant fulfilled. Also, another big reason right now and in general is you can instantly list, or you can list things merchant fulfilled even through the website, through Amazon website, without using a third-party lister, pretty simply. And you can get those items up. It says 15 minutes, but usually it's minutes later, maybe 15 minutes. And so that item is live and you can potentially get a sale right away. Of course, the more that you list, the more opportunities you have to sell. So that's another reason. So diversification, as well as immediately getting your items up there for sale versus doing FBA. And the quickest you could get it there might be, if you live like I do, really close to a fulfillment center, maybe like 3 days if you ship it on a Monday, and it maybe goes live on Wednesday, maybe Thursday. But on average, I would say typically about a week or so for most people, especially if you're having to ship across the country or several states over. It's going to take at least a week or so for your item to be shipped there and received, everything to be taken out, scanned in, and go live. Instead of waiting a week for certain items, you can just list them on Amazon through the, well, whatever listing process you use, list them, and then they can go up live right away. Some yelling going on. Hold on. All right, everything's fine. Just some people in the warehouse building that are just speaking very loudly. It sounds like there's some argument going on. It sounds fine. Everything's fine. So diversification, being able to put things up immediately, those would be my two biggest reasons for doing merchant fulfilled. I mean, basically, when you diversify, this is part of diversification. As you drill down into it, when you diversify, it gives you more options when you go out sourcing. So if you look at the items that you find wherever you may go to find them, let's say a thrift store, if you're scanning using an app like FBA Scan or rather Scoutly, it's called, or I forgot the other one. But if you, whatever app you're using, and things are popping up, sometimes it won't make sense FBA, but it will make sense merchant fulfilled, and you have to get better at figuring that out. Then you can buy those for $1 or $2 and then go and flip them on merchant fulfilled. So diversification allows you to potentially walk away from a thrift store, let's say, instead of just with 30, 35 items FBA, you can also add another 5 or 10 merchant fulfilled, and over time it grows. Of course, I'm talking about individual resellers. I'm not talking about people that are buying Gaylords or have big warehouses and have employees and are going through tons and tons of items, because clearly it makes sense to do merchant fulfilled because you're coming across so many items, and some won't be good for FBA, but they will be much better for merchant fulfilled. So that's kind of a given. And if you're only doing FBA and you're doing a lot of bulk Gaylords, let's say, or buying in bulk in whatever manner, you're missing out on a lot of money by not doing merchant fulfilled, unless you are making enough or as much as you want FBA only, and the ones that would go up merchant fulfilled, you're just getting rid of those books, let's say they're books, and you don't want to store them and ship them, but you are potentially missing out on money. And so the other thing that you have to consider, though, is if you're going to diversify into merchant fulfilled while you continue to do FBA, you've got to consider a couple things. Is do you have the space to store the items? So books are bigger, bulkier, heavier. So those will take up a lot more space than, say, DVDs, if you can sell DVDs on Amazon, or CDs, which are even smaller, if you can sell those on Amazon. If you can't sell DVDs or CDs, or records, it doesn't matter. But let's say that you can, you are ungated, or you were grandfathered in like me, and not with DVDs, but with music, with CDs and vinyl. You have to have a place to store them. Now, luckily, CDs are extremely small, lightweight, so you can have a bookshelf, whether it's a huge one with 5 shelves, or it's a 3-shelf, or whatever it is. You can store hundreds at a time without using too much space. Now, if you can't do CDs, you only do books. Books are bigger and they're bulkier and they're heavier, but you can still store a good amount of them. So you can throw up a couple bookshelves in your house, in your office, your home office, or in your garage if you have a garage. Or, of course, if you already have a storage unit, or you're thinking about getting a storage unit, a smaller one, even a small storage unit, you could throw up some shelves and you can store that stuff. Also consider the extra cost of buying envelopes for shipping, for packing. So it's up to you whether you want to buy the real thin ones that have no bubble in there, or you can buy the padded ones, which I usually get for around 20 cents a piece on eBay. I don't do a ton of shipping with those, but add 20 cents to each item. You should be fine. So you don't have to worry about them getting too damaged when you send them media mail, which I assume you will. So consider those things: extra storage space and shipping materials, which is mostly just envelopes, right? Different sizes depending on, if they're only CDs, you just need small envelopes. If they're books, you need a variety possibly. So you might want to get, a big one and then maybe a medium-sized one type of deal. So consider that. Also, of course, tape, right? Labels. So either your self-adhesive labels or you're just printing them out from your printer and just taping them on. So that's some extra cost as well for printing them, ink cartridge, or the printer ink and tape. So all of those things are small, assuming that you're getting enough profit per item or overall for merchant fulfilled. But the more you list on merchant fulfilled, just like FBA, the more you sell. So another thing though to consider, and this is the realistic situation for merchant fulfilled, is that a lot of merchant fulfilled sellers, I don't know if it's the majority, but most that I see that are the lower prices are mega sellers, typically have hundreds of thousands of feedback ratings, which means they've sold millions of items. And they're probably selling thousands a day. And they typically are big sellers, maybe a Goodwill somewhere, Thrift Books, a lot of these names where you see tons and tons of feedback ratings. And they will usually have big warehouses. They will have hundreds of thousands of items listed, and they'll ship out 1,000, 10,000, 5,000. It varies on how big each individual operation is, but most of these mega sellers are selling thousands a day. Imagine the discount they get on shipping when they're shipping out so many. So my point is that, number one, they don't mind driving the price way down, and number two, they usually have aggressive repricers, which means they will undercut you by a penny. They won't match you, they'll undercut you. And then when you match them or undercut them, I match. That's another conversation. But on my merchant fulfilled items, I use the Amazon repricer. I know, oh my God, why don't you spend the $30 a month or whatever? I'm not a fan of repricers, so I just use, I used to just reprice manually, but, and I sold stuff, believe it or not. But I use the repricer, Amazon repricer, just to match, right? The lowest merchant fulfilled price. And then I set a bottom so that doesn't go too low. And then I can go back in there occasionally and see if I want to lower the price, if it's gone below where my floor was. Anyway, off topic. Meanwhile, they will have aggressive repricers. Well, they'll just go down, 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 down. The book's at $19.99, and then you price it to match them, and then they'll go under you. And they'll stay there unless you reprice to match them, and then they'll just go under, and it'll just be going endlessly until who knows how far down they're willing to go. And a lot of times these merchant fulfilled items that, oh look, I can sell it for $10, and you look a couple months later and the price is the CD was $9.99 when you listed it. That was the lowest price, and now it's suddenly $3.75, plus shipping or whatever from a mega seller. And you look at the potential profit, and you're going to make less than what you paid for it. So that's very common. So keep that in mind, that you should make sure there's a good amount of profit in the item. You're not paying too much for it. Don't spend $5 on an item unless it's a legit $50, $35 book or CD or whatever. That's what it sells for, and the price doesn't go much lower. And that's a whole nother, side topic about profit. The various different factors to consider. So you make sure, though, in general, there's enough profit, because if you pay $1, $2, or $3 for an item merchant fulfilled, and then the price goes way down, you're gonna lose money. And that always happens with FBA or merchant fulfilled or eBay or anywhere. That happens, but you want that to be a small percentage of the items that you're trying to resell. So it's gonna be a little bit more aggressive. Not that FBA sellers cannot be aggressive with their repricing. Of course they can, but there's even more mega sellers on those merchant fulfilled items. And also consider that a lot of times merchant fulfilled items might be longer tail. So you're definitely gonna probably need a bigger inventory, just like FBA, but a bigger inventory even than FBA to sell as much as you would like. Because I have 200, I looked this morning, 292 active merchant fulfilled offers. Majority of them are CDs, and then I have, I would guess, about 40 to 50 books. And I've said this in a previous video, I believe, that I should, at some point here soon, I should go through all of them and see if there's some I can pull out that don't make any more sense to keep merchant fulfilled. But I don't have I would not consider that a very big merchant fulfilled inventory. If I had like 500 or more, then I would say that's pretty sizable for a solo seller, reseller. But yeah, I would say you need hundreds. I mean, if you're going to list 50 and wait around for sales, unless there are books that are, or other media that's selling like crazy, and you're probably going to sell it pretty quickly, then I would be prepared to wait a while to sell some of that stuff. So consider that when you're thinking about doing merchant fulfilled and whether it's right for you, and also, you know, how long it's going to take to sell these items, how much inventory you have to have. Because if you need, you know, if you're going to have to get to like 500 items to list on Amazon for merchant fulfilled, and you don't really have the space, or it's going to be super tight for the space, then maybe it doesn't make sense for you. Maybe you only want to list the items merchant fulfilled that look like they're moving pretty quickly and that you could sell quicker. You can be more aggressive with your repricing, of course, trying to get that next sale. So those are things to consider. But overall, unless you have absolutely no space, right, number one, or no interest whatsoever in storing and shipping items, then aside from those two big obstacles, then I would highly recommend that you do merchant fulfilled, especially during these times, because we don't know how long it's going to be like this, how long things are going to be shut down and affected by coronavirus. It could be many more months. I'm at the end of April here, and it could be deep into summer before things get back to sort of semi-normal. We don't know. But even when things get back to what the new normal is, and resembling what it was like before, with businesses being open and you being able to source all the time, I recommend it. You know, if you don't want to have I recommend merchant fulfilled. You don't have to have a big inventory. You can have a smaller inventory and be nimble and make sure you're aggressively repricing. You're on top of that, either with your own repricer or doing it manually. If you have a smaller inventory, you can go through there, you know, a couple times a week, kind of a deal. A lot of people do that. And that they're items that have more profit. So you can say, okay, I want $20 profit on my merchant fulfilled items, and that's it. I'm not going below that, or $10 or whatever it is. And so maybe the inventory won't be as big, but when it does sell, it'll be bigger profit. So I would consider all of those things when you're deciding whether to go into merchant fulfilled. But it's nothing scary or crazy to do, since you're already in the Amazon system and doing FBA. It's actually simpler because you just list it, it goes live right away, and then you just stick it on a shelf. And then when it sells, you stick it in an envelope, print out the label, put some tape on it, ship it out, right? Go to the post office. It's not complicated. It's slightly different, but it's not a big deal. And I would recommend it, especially if you can get a hold of some more profitable items for relatively cheap that won't make sense for FBA. If they make more sense for FBA and you'd rather not hassle with shipping it yourself or storing it, then send it in FBA, right? Don't do it merchant fulfilled. But if it just doesn't make sense FBA, then definitely do merchant fulfilled. If you enjoyed this video, if you learned anything, please give it a thumbs up. Please do. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. And as always, guys, remember, no matter what, keep booking.